Welcome once again
Thank you.
to our circle of two. And I thought I would say just a few words about teaching and about our teachers, and therefore obviously about the people in spirit who give me their instructions that I then relay to you. And they are my teachers. Some of them, in fact, were my teachers while they were down here, but that's another story. Now, everybody remembers their teacher because they are given something from them which actually enhances their life, or should do, and gives them something to think about other than their everyday living experience. Even being taught to read broadens our horizons, those of us who are able, or if we can listen in the same way, it broadens our knowledge and understanding. And if we can see visually instructions and teachings, that accomplishes the same thing. If we're very fortunate and can receive all three, that's only to the good. But today I thought we would look at teaching, and I wanted to remember my teachers and remember them to you. The very first person that I came into contact with in my spiritual and psychic development was a woman called Rita Foy, a wonderfully patient, understanding and knowledgeable medium and healer, of course. And she was based at the time at Lewisham Spiritualist Church, and she was the lady that I wrote about in my book, who was sitting there swathed in purple taffeta and very much made up and beautifully coiffed, and in fact all the things that as a strident feminist at the time I totally didn't want to know about. However, she was a superb teacher, and she tolerated my leather jeans, boots and clanging chains that I used to turn up the circle in. And in fact she didn't turn her hair the first time I walked into her circle room, so for that I thank her. And then of course there was Linda Rossiter, another fine medium. Then of course there was the wonderful Ursula Roberts, and I met her and her guide, who deigned to speak to me, well, he told me off, at Stansted Hall, the Arthur Findlay College, of repute, I won't say anything else. And Doris Stokes, who I met in spirit, never met her down here. I wasn't really interested in mediumship or that sort of thing while I was sort of growing up and growing old. But when I did meet her, she became a staunch friend and teacher. And there are others, of course, who are in that group that I'm very privileged really to be able to speak with and then relay their information to you. And of course the man in whose chair I sat, Maurice Barbanel, he keeps a watching brief over my words, as you would imagine, as the founding editor of Psychic News, as he was in 1932. I sat in his chair at his desk, which has always been his, in 1996. So, what are we going to do today? What can I teach you today? Well, I can teach you that without our teachers, we would be much worse off in our understanding, because yes, we can read books or access information, but it's nice if somebody actually sits there and talks to you about something. It seems to sink in better. At least it did with me. I'd read 1,000,000 books by the time I walked into Rita Foy's circle room at Lewisham Spiritualist Church, but it did not mean that that was going to help me on my spiritual journey, in my psychic development, in the way that Rita was going to be able to do. So, I can teach you this morning again, or this afternoon or this evening. I have to remember, of course, that you can be listening to me at any time of the day or night, about that communication with our teachers from Spirit. Not to say to you that you don't need to read a book about the subject or access more information about it than from me, but just to sort of add a little salt to your egg, if you like. So how we communicate with our teachers from Spirit is that we need to be quiet within ourselves. We need to relax. We need to have a quiet spot. And because we are speaking of spiritual matters, we always need to make that affirmation within ourselves that everything we do is only for good, only in truth and only in the light. And we can also add for the good of others, because that is always an extra that we need to address. And that way, as I touched on before, we will not be assailed by those entities or energies, forces of unpleasantness that are so beloved of horror story writers and television filmmakers, etc. So I would ask you to sit quietly in whichever position suits you best. Sit in a chair, on a couch, lie down if that's your usual position in life, or if you feel you need to. And close your eyes, and in your mind's eye, imagine a ball of light, as if this magic ball of light appears in front of you. There you are, in your mind's eye. And remember that your brain-engendered imagination is very, very, very close to the frequency of energy that those in the spirit world use to provide input. That's why you hear lots of people who are mediums saying, well, I'm not sure if I imagined that, or if that was something outside of myself that I gave to you. It's that very fine line. Imagination, as we've said before, has no life of its own. It belongs to the Creator, who is you. Spirit input has its own energy and its own life, and that comes ultimately from the Creator, the Great Spirit himself, itself. So I would ask for you to relax, and in the next segment of our teaching we will go on this special spiritual journey to speak to our teachers. Welcome again to this segment of our circle work between you and me, in which you are going to access the teaching of your own group, your own helpers and inspirers, because we all have a group who are with us, who are in that spirit world, in the heavenly realms. Whether we know that or not matters not. We just have. There are people who say, we are appointed a guardian angel when we are born here, and I see no reason to argue with that. If you think of all the times you might have fallen and didn't, if you think of all the times that disaster would have definitely befallen you and didn't, notwithstanding the times when it did, or when you did fall, but nevertheless, the given understanding is that there are lessons to be learned, and some of those are about how to dust yourself off when you fall down and start over again. Even a song made about that. And we need to know what fire is like, unfortunately, as well as knowing that we should not put our hand into it. So this is going to take you on a little journey to meet your guides and helpers and inspirers. So relax, you make your affirmation. Everything I do only for good, in truth and in the light. Never get fed up of saying that, and never think you may not need to say it again. That won't work, and you don't want to find out, do you? What happens if you don't? So having said that, we relax, and we imagine in front of ourselves a ball of light. And that ball of light is like a celestial carriage, a chariot. We mentioned fire before. Chariot of fire? Perhaps not. But a chariot, something that will carry us, convey us to our destination, which is not of this world, but of the next. And of the world, of course, which was behind us, because that is the world from which we came. And so, in our mind's eye, we step forward, strong, well, pain-free, youthful, and we step forward into that ball of light. And when we are in that ball of light, we find ourselves feeling wonderfully warm and loved. And we feel that we are being drifted away in that ball of light. We are going to a very special place. We feel it sailing away, a smooth sea, until we come to rest on the shore. What's going to meet us when we come out of that ball of light? We're going to see a beautiful crystal city stretching away before us. We step out of the light onto a beautiful beach. But there, not very far away, is the beginning of a city made of crystal. It's wonderful, beautiful. You can see through everything. And there is a wonderful building. It has open doors. I'm going to walk in there because that is where your friends in spirit are. That's where your group of helpers and inspirers and guides are gathered, waiting to greet you. You can walk inside this wonderful building and see everything there is to see. But to the side, in a group, around a table, some benches, you will see some people welcoming people sitting. These are your people. These are the people that will see that your teaching goes well, that you will accomplish that which you desire. You can approach them and you shall sit with them. They come from all different times, perhaps, wearing different clothes. Some may be wearing robes, some modern clothes, some you may recognise. perhaps there may be a family member among them. But there we will stay for a little while, and whether you hear their voices or just become impressed with what they would like you to feel and to know, you will be loved and comforted and instructed. Whether it's at a conscious level or whether they are programming your superconscious, that remains for you to understand and find out as you progress on your journey in this life. So I will leave you there, and when it's time to come back, you will hear my voice again, telling you that it's time to leave. And now you may take your leave of that lovely place, of those lovely people. Make your farewells. Walk back through the door, leaving the crystal city behind, across that beach, and back to the golden light, the globe of light that waits for you. Step back inside, and as it closes around you, you feel once more that you are lifted, warm and loved, comforted, pain-free, youthful, and you feel its gentle glide until once more you know that you are back in the room where you started your journey. And then you step out of that globe of light, walk back to where you began. And when you feel the weight of your body again, perhaps wriggle your fingers and toes, just wriggle generally. Have a blink, open your eyes, and now you're back. If you have just completed a meditation, that spiritual journey by which you went and met someone or a group of those in spirit who care enough to wish to speak with you and further your own spiritual development, then we need perhaps to talk about how you're going to put that into operation and what it actually means. The main thing that we always say is to prove that there is unconditional life after this life, for all those who are born to this earth plane. And particularly in this case, for the subject, which is yourself. Because you can go to any amount of demonstrations of mediumship, consult any amount of mediums, you may still come away thinking that they haven't really proved that much. You may want them to so much that you convince yourself, even in the face of lax evidence or little proof, if any. You may just feel vaguely comforted because somebody is telling you something that perhaps you already knew about yourself. But this is about real mediumship. This is about actual communication between this earth and the next life and people therein. And it's very important for our daily lives, I believe, to be able to understand that this life isn't all there is, however good it may be, or however bad. And we all have good and bad times. We still need to understand that we are spirit beings here and now, and that we will continue thereafter, hereafter. Our spiritual journeys are never easy. Our life on earth is never easy. But we can help ourselves along the way by understanding that we are never alone, that we always have those who wish us well in the world of spirit, walking alongside of us, accessible to us, should we wish to make contact with them, and not just to make contact on a one-way journey, but to be able to hear their response to us and to know that they are there, they are listening, and also that on many occasions they can help us on this earthly journey as well as on our spiritual journey. So what's all this about spiritual then? Well, I suppose what we really mean is spirit. We deal in spirit, we deal in the spirit. We hear about the power of the spirit. What is this spirit? Well, in order to access this spirit, it has been said that we need to understand that we are all psychic. Psychic meaning having a sense that is outside of our five, if we're fortunate, five earthly senses, our physical senses. It's the sixth sense, that instinct, that intuition, that ability to actually contact our spirit within us and spirit without. And the spirit without is in the realm of spirit, and that is where the difficulties begin, because perhaps we're not supposed to be able to access that spirit world. Having said that, humankind has been accessed by that spirit world and has been able to access it ever since the beginning, because even in ancient texts, take for instance Genesis in the Bible, how did anybody hear a snake talk? How did anybody hear a donkey talk, Balaam's ass? Well, they heard it through their clairaudient sense, their spirit self, their spirit within, and they were listening to those spirit beings without. I don't want to confuse the issue too much. What is our psychic sense? It's knowing that when you walk into a room, something's wrong or something's right. It's knowing that somebody you've just met is up to no good. Not always a comfortable sense to possess in those circumstances. And there are exercises and practices that can hone up those abilities which are inherent in everybody. And it has been said, and will be said again, that one needs to be psychic in order to be a medium. But one is not necessarily a medium if one is psychic. Well, that seems to me to be obvious, but nevertheless we may as well repeat it again. Psychic exercises are such that you do need somebody to practice on. So if you have a friend, you may need to drag them into this with you. And there are various psychic exercises that you can perform that are actually on my website, which is www.lyngibb-de-swarte.com, where you may amuse yourself dangling pendulums and various other aspects of psychic work. The point is that if you dangle a pendulum, the pendulum itself doesn't know anything. People that say that pieces of rock are animate, in other words, have a spirit within them, that can answer questions and so on, I find a little sad. But because you have a spirit group, people with you from spirit, they can manipulate and manoeuvre material objects. And this is something that you can find most interesting in your development. The point about mediumship is that it does not rely on psychism. It does not rely on pendulums waving or not. It doesn't rely on card readings or readings from anything. It relies purely on the spirit within yourself, connecting with the spirit in someone else, not necessarily down here on the earth plane, but in that heavenly realm. And the more elevated our life down here, the more good we can do, the better we conduct ourselves, the more likely it is that we will get a clearer channel, shall we say, to the better echelons of those in the spirit world. There are different planes of existence in that world of spirit. The lower planes, which we've touched on before, which we will only just glance at and move hurriedly away. And then there's what is often termed the astral level, which is the one just after this, basically. Going up, that is, not going down, going up. And it's on that level where most mediumship is attainable by anyone who develops their spiritual abilities through meditation and contemplation. And that is the plane of existence where we find Uncle Bill, Auntie Flo, and millions of other people who've led ordinarily decent lives here and gone on to this next plane of existence. And most mediums, when they've developed sufficiently, will be able to access that reasonably well. And these are the people that are consulted when those who have lost loved ones friends and family members go to hear the news that they want to hear, that they are safe and well on the other side, and with messages of comfort and upliftment for them, to help them on their way in their earthly existence. And this is a wonderful comfort, and it's worth doing as a medium. It is worth doing, but as they say, any job worth doing is worth doing well. And this, of course, is where we get a jumble of mixed messages coming back. I was taught by my first teacher that you only had to give 3 pieces of evidence of life after death of a particular person to constitute a validation that there is such a thing as life after death, life after this life, and that that person is all right and is able to communicate back with a loved one. And really, when you consider it, to get 3 definite pieces of evidence is a wonderful thing. 1 piece of evidence would be wonderful, but 3 is accepted, and I accepted that. And so when you yourself, as a medium, receive 3 evidential pieces of information from a particular person inhabiting that astral plane, identification, how they passed away, some memory, a definite memory from when they were down here, and perhaps a particular message that's relevant, very relevant to the recipient, then you can be satisfied that you have done your job. Now, if you want to elevate your own spiritual journey, your own pathway, and you'd like to go a little higher than that, and we use the word higher, lower, it's really an immeasurable distance, then you will have to take on board some of those precepts that were laid down by holy people from all religious belief systems, including the very ancient naturist ones, that say that you yourself have got to follow a course of trying to better yourself, of abstinence. And it's no surprise that most of the world's religions call for at least 1 day of fasting, because while the body is taken up with bodily function, the spiritual faculty can be fogged. And similarly, in the same way that if we are training for a sport, we are told not to eat something for 2 hours before undertaking strenuous exercise, otherwise you get what I used to call as a coach the chewed chip in the throat syndrome, then we can apply that also to our spiritual endeavours. And before we are going to sit for spirit contact, for communication with any of those levels in spirit, particularly those above the astral level, we should not indulge ourselves for 2 hours before. So if you're sitting here and you've just eaten a large meal, or you're sitting here watching it while you have a TV dinner on your lap, the suggestion is that you might like to wait a couple of hours and then come back, and we will do a short meditation now which will take you a little further up above the astral plane. We will embark on another spiritual journey, This time we will use a staircase, and we shall imagine, having said that everything I do only for good, in truth and in the light, and for the good of others. We will imagine in front of ourselves a staircase. It can be a staircase you remember, or it can be one that you dream up. And if you're very lucky, after a few attempts at this, those in spirit who help teach and guide you and help you will provide you with their version of the staircase, and you walk up the staircase. As you go up, you see above you is a landing. It looks very pleasant. You go onto the landing, and for whatever reason, those in spirit don't ever want us just to stand around. There are always benches and seats. And we find a seat and we sit ourselves upon it. And then we ask, would someone please like to come and speak to me about my spiritual pathway? Would somebody please show themselves to me, come and sit with me, talk to me, explain to me what I must do? And as we sit there, somebody does come. We may not see their face. We may only be aware of their presence. But how wonderful that is. And we sit there and know that this loving presence is there, that they are allowed to be there by the Most High. And here is this person in spirit, ready to help you and to tell you that everything is going to be well for you, that in your journey you will have many books to read, much to understand, but all will be made plain to you, and that you have plenty of time in which to do this. Don't rush at everything like a bull in a china shop. Just take your time, because time is what we all have. Not necessarily on the earth plane, but certainly in eternity, to which we all aspire, and a gift of which we have. So take your time, listen to what is said to you, and in a few moments, a few minutes, you will hear my voice telling you to say your goodbye, make your farewell, and to once again walk down the stairs. Now is the time to say goodbye to the wonderful spirit person who has been with you, and rise from your seat, walk back towards the staircase and down the stairs, back to where you started from, when you feel yourself once more in that place from which you started out, and you feel again the weight of your body, then have a little wriggle. And when you're ready, open your eyes and perhaps take a sip of water, if hopefully you have some by you. Now I hope that you enjoyed that, because this is something that you can do perhaps on a daily basis and get a benefit to you in your daily life and in your daily round. And this is what being a medium is all about. It's all about communicating with those on the other side of life. And if you are a spiritualist, it's all about proving that there is life after this life unconditionally, and that we all indeed will live forever. God bless you.